2024, like every year, has made titans of some and imps of others. Some have risen to great heights, reaching ever to the stars, while others shrink and diminish, making a whimpering and final implosion, disappearing like some speck of anonymous dust. Shit on the shit soul of some shit boot. Welcome to Outdoor Cats. Today is Saturday, December 28th, and today Chris Rabage and I will be discussing those titans and imps as they relate to Worcester, Massachusetts in the year of our Lord, 2024. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bill. I am so ready to talk about both Titans and Imps. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So we prepared a sort of lightning round here. 9 or 10 winner and attendant loser. The one we decided to open with, the White Eagle in Beyond Wrestling, our number one winner of the year. In terms of cool stuff going on in the city, cool things to do, stuff that is a sort of feather in the cap of our city's culture. I think that Beyond Wrestling is top of the list as far as that goes. But Chris, I'm wondering how you feel about it.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I love that we have this in our city, and this is the kind of actual real organic stuff that makes Worcester cool. Beyond Wrestling is amazing. For anyone who doesn't know, Beyond Wrestling happens every Thursday and has been happening every Thursday for years, usually at the White Eagle, that they just had their big event at the Palladium last week, a steel cage match that I couldn't go to, which was a bummer. But yeah, Beyond Wrestling is a really, really great time. You go up to the White Eagle on a Thursday night, you pay $10 and you go upstairs, and you get 2 hours of a lot of fun with people that are all genuinely there to enjoy themselves. It's a very irony-free zone. Hipster is an overused term, but hipster-free zone. It is just a bunch of people just like genuinely, earnestly enjoying something together. The drinks are cheap. The other big glow up for Beyond Wrestling this year, and the White Eagle for that matter, was that a very emerging artist who some folks might have heard of named Claro.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the Claro video. We could definitely link to this. But
For
Claro filmed a music video for the single from her very big new album for this year at the White Eagle, using the wrestlers from Beyond Wrestling. So yeah, very much a winner of 2024. Very cool. I love walking around the city and seeing the every Thursday forever Beyond Wrestling stickers. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. Beyond also did a really cool sort of collaboration with the Worcester Hot Dog Safari, which I'll put a subcategory of Beyond Wrestling winner is Worcester Hot Dog Safari winner. Very much, in the same spirit of local, organic, like sort of homegrown events that have a lot of buzz around them, and everyone loves to go to them. But they had a wrestling match as part of the hot dog celebration, and it was a lot of fun. So
that's amazing. Yeah. My go-to weed dispensary sponsors them. Like, it just feels like they just fit right in here,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the Claro thing is pretty big for not just Beyond and the White Eagle, but for Worcester, because like she's like on the Tonight Show and stuff. Like this record's really blowing up for her. So I tried when that came out. I can't remember when during the year. I think it was over the summer that came out. I tried to track down like how and why Claro decided to come to Worcester and record the music video there, and I never got a very satisfactory answer. But you know what? Maybe it's just better to be left a mystery.
Yeah, I think some things like this are just better if we get to fill in the blanks. I really believe that. This might not
Yeah.
be one you want to hunt down with your gumshoes.
Right, right. It'll be a little bit less disappointing than what's going on in my head, which is that Clara went to the White Eagle one time and was like, "This is the coolest shit ever," and then was like, "Hey, you want to do a music video?" Yeah, we'll definitely link to that if anyone hasn't seen it yet. It's a great music video. But our attendant loser, our imp on the shit heel of the Titan of the White Eagle, is Brew on the Grid.
Brew on the grid.
Man, tough year for Brew on the Grid. Yeah.
Tough year for the entire grid hospitality enterprise. Brew on the grid, dead, and then maybe back alive, but probably gonna die again. The beer garden, dead. Let's see. Trying to remember. Some of those places went so fast, it's hard to remember. Sticks Noodle Bar, dead. Revolution Pie and Pint, dead.
Oh, that's a
So
throwback.
dead. Yeah, worst pizza I ever had in my life. True story. There's some we're forgetting, but
No,
they're
it's
forgettable.
it has been a really tough, really tough year for downtown, and sort of everything wrapped up in the Worcester Renaissance narrative. When you have your main coffee shop downtown, that came along as part of that whole Worcester Renaissance push, and it can't even sustain one coffee shop downtown. I mean, you're not looking at a thriving downtown. You're not looking at what do they like to call it? An 18-hour downtown when the one coffee shop is going out of business. So tough year for the downtown. Tough year for the Worcester Renaissance, and I don't see it turning around. I mean, it's really interesting to compare the White Eagle with Brew on the Grid, because the White Eagle was around long before the Worcester Renaissance, and is thriving. You could say even in spite of it. Like, it was like very fortunately not a victim like the dive bar was a victim of the Polar Park development across the street. And White Eagle shows sort of our the cockroach spirit of Worcester's real culture, and Brew on the Grid shows how thin and flimsy this sort of new origin story and myth about Worcester that has been tacked on since the Ed Augustus years really is. There's not a lot to it.
One of my favorite things about Worcester as a place with a culture amongst all of the people, all of us who live here, is that we don't react super well to like taking a hospitality group concept out of a box and plopping it down. People here don't really like that. And they react to it poorly, and that's one of our best attributes. So let's keep doing that. And we singled out the White Eagle, but I mean the Hibernian Center also doing great, getting ready to renovate their building. The Hotel Vernon still going strong. I could go on and on. I mean these real authentic places that are made by Worcester people for Worcester people and actually have a history and a culture and a community. They're surviving and thriving. Actually, the White Eagle is packed most weekday nights.
Right.
I went once after a Woo Sox game and discovered that that's where all the security and like usher staff go to drink after games.
That's sick.
It's awesome. It's perfect.
Yeah. And the beer garden, so much hope was put in the beer garden. If you'll remember, even earlier this year, in years past, is like, oh, this is the Worcester Renaissance. This is Worcester turning around. We have a beer garden downtown now. And it turns out that premise just didn't click, did not stick with the community enough for that to thrive. So
turns out when you set up your taps by an algorithm and your food is mid and just everything about the place is forgettable, people forget it.
Yeah, right. They did have that one super whack spray paint wall art of the 80s drummer.
Yeah, they sure did.
The anonymous 80s drummer with no connection to Worcester, and it was just like, Worcester, heavy music metal, right? You
Yeah.
guys like that, right? Yeah.
Very funny for a place to wink at Worcester being the Paris of the 80s while basically them being also the concept of the Paris of the 80s, which is like, a complete gilded farce. But
very funny. Yeah. So moving back into more serious territory, our number 2 winner and loser, 1-2 combo. We're saying winner, Christian King, loser, Joe Petty.
Le who? The her.
And I think that the last meeting and the last couple of weeks have borne that out, especially. But I don't know, Chris, should we start with the winner or the loser here?
Let me say a little bit about the loser and why I chose or helped to choose Joe as the loser in city council this year. Joe Petty has made his political career in the city of Worcester and as the mayor with a reputation of competency and decorum and being the person who can bring the body together in consensus and keep the temperature from rising and get everyone together at the end of the day to shake hands and clap backs and vote on super regressive things and make the city not do well. But his value that he has always brought is his ability to control the chambers. And Bill, I think in 2024, we have seen that he cannot control the chambers anymore. They are out of his control.
Right. Yeah, that's the two events that come to mind with that is the Gaza demonstration,
Mm-hmm.
and then the police union big showing the other week. Two moments where Joe just seemed to really flail in the face of real political pressure, right? Worcester City Council very accustomed to like having the small group of lefties or activists that it can squash by ignoring, basically, and not doing anything to rock the boat enough that people want to see them take action one way or another. So they operate in a relative anonymity most years and almost like an obscurity where nobody really cares what they have to say. And this year was a lot different. This year, their mettle was tested and it was proved very lacking. I think that on the surface, you see Joe Petty's camp, sort of the coalition of our real conservative crank members of the council and the sort of radical centrists like Joe Petty. They have a 6-vote coalition that prevents progressive ideas from going forward, and like they're still able to get everything they want through, but it is really becoming thin and eroding. And I think that the way that they handle this Department of Justice report is going to really expose that. So I think that is sort of the context in which Christian King becomes the winner here. He's done a really good job setting himself up as an alternative in that vice chair position and challenging the way that Joe does things. All year he's been doing that. He lost me a little bit on Mill Street because he was a critic of Mill Street for some reason. I wish he didn't do that. But
yeah, me too.
Overall, I think that he's shown himself to be antagonistic of Joe Petty in the best way. I mean, the last meeting, especially, really showed the contrast.
Or are you talking about the meeting where he basically verbally abused our venerable mayor?
Yeah, right. He threatened and intimidated Joe Petty.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. That was that became the sort of narrative after that incident. Is a testament to just how deeply racist this place is.
Yeah. When you have
in a big way.
When you have to tone police the argument, you're losing the argument.
Right.
Most times.
Yeah. For sure. But I think that watching the Christian Petty tension going into 2025 is going to be important. And this DOJ report sort of puts us right in Christian's comfort zone, I think, where his big thing is that he wants the city council to be a more active body in terms of, goal setting and accountability and sort of systems work. And that's what he was doing with his chairmanship of the municipal operations subcommittee. And then Joe Petty goes and gives that subcommittee to Mo Bergman, who is just frankly a dumbass.
Mm-hmm.
And
pure accident, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolute pure accident. Right. And the fact that Christian challenged both Joe and public safety chairman Kate Toomey at the last meeting, shows that there's a real contrast about to be sort of demonstrated here, because Joe Petty is going to be put in a position of having to defend why he put Kate Toomey in that seat every turnover of the past decade. And Kate Toomey is going to have to defend why her subcommittee didn't take up a single police accountability item the entire time that she's had that subcommittee. Despite there being a racial equity audit, despite there being petitions from the community asking her to do that, she never did. And Joe Petty still appoints her to that every year. And now we have the Department of Justice compiling a report of all these problems, most of them we pretty much known about. And there's been no council oversight of that. And that has to do with both Kate and Joe. So there's a very strong message to articulate for Christian and other progressives that are going to be either seeking re-election or challenging somebody for their seat in 2025, because we do have an election next year.
I'll just say this, I hope that here's to there being a lot more losers in the current city council member pile in 2025. I'm really, really hoping. Let's all make that happen, guys. But
right.
The thing I would say about Christian is my assessment of Christian's approach to the way that he's taking this on is that he's very much a death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of guy. He will just chop and chop and chop and chop and chop and use use Robert's rules and use the way that council operates to do that. And this DOJ report is a big, delicious slice of birthday cake if that's the kind of work that you do. So we'll see what happens. I can't wait.
Yeah. In 2025, I really hope to be announcing another winner and loser, and that would be Rob Bellata and Candy Mayo Carlson.
Hell yeah to that.
Because I made this case a little bit in my newsletter, but I'm going to really stress it. Rob is within 200 votes of beating Candy, and Candy is the intellectual and emotional center of the Crank political project in Worcester, and it was like 1,500 votes to 1,300 votes, something like that. It's like that is an entirely flippable District 2 is entirely flippable
It
and
is.
would send a very, very clear message to Eric Batista and Joe Petty, should he win the mayorship again, that people are done with their bullshit, because Kenny Merrill Carlson is pretty much the perfect avatar of the old guard's bullshit here in the city.
Yep. She is also one of the most direct ties between city government and the real estate speculation that's happening, commercial speculation that's happening, et cetera, et cetera. I live in District 2. This is very close to my heart. We gotta flip this for Rob. We gotta do it. And this is a district that is full of all of these new people that are moving here into the 5/1 luxury apartment tinderboxes. And so, yeah, let's make it happen, guys.
Hell yeah. Speaking of our third category of winner and losers, we have winner, WPI. Loser, the Economic Development Coordinating Council, which a lot of people learned about for probably the first time this year. For a political body like the Economic Development Coordinating Council, being learned about is the last thing you want. You do not want people knowing that you exist, unless they're the kind of people who already know that you exist. But before we get into that sort of stuff, just go over the basic news here. WPI bought 2 hotels in the Gateway Park project, which WPI and the city collaborated on some 20 years ago to build a life sciences center down in a brownfield off of where 290 and 190 meet up over by WPI. They had a happy collaboration until this year. WPI announced that it would be buying 2 of the hotels to convert into student housing. The reason why they said they were going to buy 2 hotels to convert it into student housing is because of the housing situation in Worcester is so dire that they need to spend their capital on creating more student housing because their students cannot find anywhere to rent around here. The Economic Development Coordinating Council sort of exposes itself publicly for the first time after this decision by WPI. I believe that was in like August or September.
Yeah, August, I think.
They release a letter as the Economic Development Coordinating Council blasting WPI for this sort of breach of the public trust. Their argument being that, we thought WPI was our friend and they were as invested as we were in our downtown tourism industry that is apparently so big and important. And how dare they? And we had like a couple weeks of very public freakouts from Candy Merrill Carlson, especially, and Tim Murray. Tim Murray was freaking out possibly the hardest. Joe Petty, they were thinking about suing WPI. And in doing so, they had people asking the question, what the hell is the Economic Development Coordinating Council?
Ooh, you don't want them asking that question.
No. So people got to learn that every Friday morning, city manager Eric Batista and the past 3 city managers before him, or 2 city managers before him being the third, have kept a sort of private shadow city council that meets Friday mornings in the city manager's office and decides on the shape and tone and style of development that will happen in the city. And that only makes its way onto the public city council's agenda when they need a tax break. But all of the work that goes into deciding what gets built where and who builds it is done in private by a collection of people who don't take any notes or minutes and aren't beholden or accountable to anybody in any way.
Yeah. So for people listening at home, if you were feeling like When something comes in front of the city council, they have an item, you go to speak on it. They're playing Candy Crush on their phone while you speak on it. They all have already decided what they're going to vote, and you're like, man, this doesn't feel like a great process where like I'm really able to give a lot of input. Bad news, it's actually way worse than that. 90% of the work has already been done before you even knew that this was a thing. And this is where they do it. They do it in those Friday meetings. The whole project gets bundled up and set up there, and we're only brought in for our perfunctory get to yell at council for 2 minutes at the very, very end.
Right. Any big development in the city has been sort of authored and negotiated and brought about by this Economic Development Coordinating Council, which is not the city council, but features the most powerful people in the city. Mike Angelini, who is on the chairman of the Worcester Redevelopment Authority, Tim Murray, who's the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Craig Blaise, the little talked about but extremely influential Craig Blaise of the Worcester Business Development Corporation, and of course the city manager. There are a few other members, but those are the big ones. Those are the sort of eyes wide shut style secret masters of the universe that may well be having sacrifice rituals in the basement of the Worcester Club, like what happens in that movie. But we just wouldn't know. We have no idea.
Just wouldn't know. Yeah,
we just wouldn't know.
We don't have membership cards. But yeah, that's your real city council, everybody. That's your actual real city council. That's who's deciding.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to go to those meetings.
No, you are not.
And if you were surprised by the way that Eric Batista was hired, just know that there was probably some discussion of that going on in the Economic Development Coordinating Council that precipitated Joe Petty's vote to appoint Eric Batista as the interim city manager, knowing full well that interim becomes full-time city manager. And that was a motion that he got to make without sort of any disclosure of why, and ended up being the only motion he really needed to make before the city manager got a fat contract that just got extended.
Yep. And then they all did shots of the blood from the WPI goat. That's what I hear they do. Come on, Bill. We're supposed to be keeping this one light.
Yeah, that's right. They all go and they touch the nutsack of that horse statue over by the old courthouse.
Yeah, they have acquired the old steer from the top of Fairway Beef, and they rub the testicles in commemoration of whatever it is they pray to or follow.
The two newest members of the Economic Development Coordinating Council have to reenact Turtle Boy while everyone watches them in a circle, which is very embarrassing. And I wouldn't, I haven't figured out yet quite who is the turtle and who is the boy, but Eric Batista is one of them. And I'm not sure which one's worse, to be quite honest with you.
Sometimes you're the turtle, sometimes you're the boy.
That's right. Speaking of turtles and boys, we're moving on to another round of winners and losers. The winner, this one being very related, the Worcester Red Sox / Madison Properties are a big winner of 2024.
Big winner.
The loser, of course, is the city and city taxpayers. I don't know. Most of our listeners are probably aware of the fact that the pay for itself promise finally eroded completely this year. The this stuff is so annoying and hard to talk about. The diff district.
Let's try as hard as we can not to get mad.
Right.
It's the let's not get mad challenge.
Let's not get mad and try to explain this to somebody who is normal and doesn't have to know this stuff. The public was sold on Polar Park way long ago. Back in 2018. Public was sold on this myth that was widely lampooned by economists across the country that Polar Park would, quote, pay for itself. the way that it would pay for itself is they drew an arbitrary circle around the site, and all of the real estate taxes and developments inside of that circle would be shuffled away from the city's operating budget and toward this thing called the district fund. And the loans that the city took out to pay for the construction of the ballpark would be paid back for annually by the diff district and some other stuff like parking fees and whatever, blah, blah, blah. The big component is this arbitrary circle drawn on the map around Polar Park where all of the property taxes come back in and pay for the loan. The loan is about $6 million annual. This year, after dipping into a reserve fund for the past 3 years, we finally had to pay $780,000 out of the operating budget.
How'd that happen, man?
I don't know, but they're still lying about it.
It's weird because, like, I remember, back in the day when we were talking about all this, I remember a bunch of economists sounded in, and a lot of them didn't have great things to say about this as an economic development project. I remember a very pointed assessment from one economist that said something like, bringing a minor league baseball team to your city has the same economic impact as adding a multiplex movie theater. And so you should spend that much money and effort on it and no more.
Yeah.
But then the city paid some economists and they said that it was going to work out great.
Yeah, they hired basically the one economist who says that, who gets paid by cities to say that.
Yeah.
Andrew Zimbalist. And
did he bamboozle us?
I think he got paid. He's long gone now. He got his consultancy fee. He's out of here. He bamboozled us. You know who else bamboozled us, making him a winner alongside the Worcester Red Sox, is Dennis Dowdle of Madison Properties. Let me try to explain this as fast as I can. So that arbitrary circle around Polar Park was drawn, and the whole scheme was built on 4 or 5 marquee developments that this company, Madison Properties, which is a Worcester company, owned by Dennis Dowdle, a longtime Worcester developer, promised to build around Polar Park. That made this a slam dunk. It was like 2 residential, a hotel, an office building, and 1 other development. So all of that new development, great. New property taxes, goes back to paying off the loan. Look, we got a new ballpark, we got all these new buildings, and we paid back our construction loan. Awesome. What happens if that developer decides that he doesn't want to do that anymore?
What happens if you set up a 35-year economic plan where everything has to go the most perfect amount of perfect every single day of every single year for 35 years? I think is the question that we are left to ask ourselves. I think we're finding the answer is you may underperform slightly.
Right. So Dennis Dowdle promised all this stuff that we built this pay for itself premise on. He this year decided, it basically told the Worcester Redevelopment Authority in a meeting earlier this year that he'll build that stuff when he's good and ready, when the market allows it. And Mike Angelini, aforementioned of the Economic Development Coordinating Council, is like, what the hell? You had an obligation. You have an obligation to the city to build this stuff. Why aren't you building it? And Dennis Dowdle's attorney was just like, well, we have an obligation to our shareholders first, city second. So if the market conditions aren't right, we're just not going to do it. Luckily, the city didn't structure the deal in a way that there's any penalty for Dowdle for not doing that. and they actually put a clause in the contract that allowed him to break and renegotiate his tax deal after 3 years if he wants to. And wouldn't you know it, he wants to, and that's what he did. And now the whole pro forma of Polar Park paying for itself is basically out the window, because they have to, it was all built on the tax payments that were negotiated in that tax deal. And now who knows what's coming in.
Yeah. If people haven't been to Polar Park yet, you don't even have to go, but like some of this stuff is it's kind of hard to envision, right? Like where there was supposed to be a hotel, there's a hole in the ground, or there's like a brown field or whatever. But I want to invite people to come to the Green Street Bridge side of Polar Park. You don't even have to pay for a ticket to see what I'm about to tell you about. You can walk through the Rockland Bank Park, or whatever it is,
right.
that little weird corner park they put in, and look in front of you towards the ball field. And what you'll see is the footprint, the entire foundation and footprint and infrastructure for an office building. That office building is never going to be built. You heard it here first. That office building will never be an office building. I will bet you all the money I have that it will never be an office building. It may be something. That is a very real example of what we're talking about. They literally built the foundation for this thing that was supposed to go up. And guess what? Whoops. Office space is not hot in the real estate market right now, like at all.
Right. And the developer is left with all of the leverage and sort of leeway to say yes or no. Like there's no penalty built into this deal for the developer backing out, but the city still has to pay the loans back. So you see here that the city is operating as a vehicle to facilitate the free flow of capital. And when that works in both of their favors, great. When the free flow of capital is at a detriment to the city, as it is in this example, the developer is allowed to get off scot-free, while the city and the services that the city provides that have nothing to do with the free flow of capital, like the public schools, get shafted.
Yep. Profit is privatized and risk is socialized.
Right. And the guy who authored that arrangement, who put us in this mess, is now the state housing secretary for Governor Maura Healey.
Good old Ed Augustus.
Absolutely none of this shit is sticking to him, despite the fact that he was the guy who authored the deal that let Madison Properties basically walk away if they didn't want to play ball anymore. So he literally wrote it in such a way that the thing could completely fall apart, but in like 4 or 5 years after he wrote it. So, a conspiracy-minded person might say, well, he knew he wouldn't be city manager in 4 or 5 years. He'd be doing something else. So if you write in a scheduled collapse of something that is impossible, better to do it after you'll be gone from the situation.
Yes, indeed. Bill, I know we're already tracking to run ourselves long, as we always do, but could I tell you a quick, slightly humorous story?
Yeah, let's do it.
So a little look behind the microphone. I am visiting my in-laws right now in the great state of New Hampshire, the Granite State, and this podcast came up last night as a topic of conversation, and the name of this podcast, Outdoor Cats, came up as a topic of conversation. And so I explained to my in-laws the genesis of the name Outdoor Cats. And that name comes from Ed Augustus. You can talk more about that if you'd like, or we can talk about it another time. But
sure, yeah.
The question that I got back from one of my in-laws was, are you like worried that he might hear what you guys are talking about and hear this reference. And I was like, oh no, he's long gone. He's the housing secretary for the entire state now. And we don't really know what he does, but yeah, he doesn't think about us back in Worcester anymore.
He doesn't think about us one bit.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I'll tell the whole outdoor cat story another time. It was just a funny thing. It's basically Ed Augustus called me a name and the name was Outdoor Cats, but we'll get into that another time. Yeah, Ed Augustus, he knew what he was doing. I will give him that. I think that he really knew what he was doing with this Polar Park deal. He knew the lie that he was selling the public on, and he knew that it would come home to roost after he was long gone. I guess
he felt his parachute squarely on his back.
Right. I'm gonna call this Outdoor Cats rule number 2. When you are authoring sabotaging lie, when you are authoring a deal that you know will fall apart, make sure it falls apart after you leave your position. Make sure it falls apart in the future. Don't author a deal that falls apart immediately. Author a deal that falls apart in the future after you're gone. Many a Worcester Politico has played that game. Ed Augustus is probably the best of any of them.
I completely agree. That's a fantastic rule too.
So let's move on here to school side, like we were just talking about. The place that can't buy textbooks because we built Polar Park. Loser of the schools, Marin Binyenda. Winner, Rachel Monterez. So loser Marin Binyenda, former superintendent that was let go by the school committee. Her contract was not renewed. As a revenge tour, she runs for...
But she's not mad. She's not mad.
No, she's not mad, right? She says that. She says she's not mad, so she's not.
She's not
mad. Definitely not for revenge purposes at all. She decides to run for school committee. She wins school committee easily, handily. She gets more votes for school committee last fall than the mayor got for the mayor. She gets like the most votes out of anybody for anything. Her revenge tour, I was just going back through all the articles I wrote this year, and I was like, oh yeah, in January, we really thought that Marin Binyenda was going to be on a revenge tour. She starts the revenge tour strong in January, being just openly hostile to Rachel Monterez, the new superintendent, who's more qualified than her and better, and people like her more. And it looks transparently at every school committee meeting like Marin Binyenda is trying to exact revenge for her firing.
And then what happened?
And then she never exacted any revenge at all. It's been an entire year, and not a single one of these votes has gone her way. No revenge has been enacted.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the very gears of municipal government that she used to grind better ideas down for years are grinding her down now that she's not the one who has the levers.
Right. Yeah. And
kind of delicious.
Yeah, it's kind of great. And she showed herself to have very little political acumen, because she keeps trying to do these things that are embarrassing, and she loses at the end of an 8-3 vote. It's school committee, so like a 6-3 vote. And that doesn't stop her from trying every week. Like, they just voted, I was reading Ashton Doyle's WPS in brief. They just had a split vote on like a procedural item relating to the superintendent's mid-year report. Like, Marin Binyenda voted no on like accepting the mid-year progress report, which is just like a document updating the school committee on her goals.
Yeah. But she's not mad. I must say she is not mad.
Also, not double dipping.
No.
The retirement that she's getting is perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal that she's collecting retirement as Worcester superintendent while also working as a superintendent in another school district.
It's legal, it's ethical, it's moral, it's all of the things.
It's all of this. It's perfectly fine. And it's not a revenge tour, but since there's been no revenge, we're going to have to call her a loser because loser. And by that nature, having survived this year of revenge tour, we gotta call Rachel Monterez winner.
We really do.
If she decides to leave Worcester, I would be upset because she really is a better executive for the schools than I think we've had in a long, long time. But it would be totally understandable. I mean, imagine coming in from a more normal place and you're all of a sudden a superintendent of a school district and you just want to do wonky superintendent things. And you have to deal with somebody like Maureen Binenda or Diana Biancaria, always constantly breathing down your neck and trying to sabotage everything you're doing. I mean, she stepped into an episode of goddamn Vice Principals, that HBO show.
Yeah. It is really nice just for this year, taking the year that we got to watch, not knowing what's going to happen, watching the smarter, better person win. We get that so infrequently in Worcester, and it feels so nice when we get to see it. I really hope she stays. I can't control what she does, but
no, I know. I think that it behooves all of us to remind the new superintendent publicly that we understand how awful we are, and we're sorry.
We're sorry.
So
please give us a little longer to fix it. Please.
Yeah, we can fix it. I promise. Maybe Maureen will run for mayor and you'll be done with it. Actually, you wouldn't be done with it because the mayor still is at school committee. So.
Oh God.
So I actually don't know. I don't know if there's a way out. Unfortunately, we're just kind of stuck with it. You know what else we're stuck with? The Worcester Police Department.
Oh yeah.
We are stuck with having a police department, unfortunately. But this year, I think we got to say the winner, critics of the WPD. Critics of the WPD were proved awful right this year. Famously, we just made the Washington Post for how right critics of the Worcester Police Department were proven by the DOJ report.
Yeah. And, to those who have us on your speakers right now, you have in front of you two multi-decade critics of the WPD. And we got proven right. We were right.
Vindicated. Now, will that change anything? That's a different one. But you know what? Let's cast that aside for now to just take a little pride, do a little self-congratulating that our decades of experience pointing at the problems of the Worcester Police Department were, acknowledged by the Federal Department of Justice, vindicated. Supporters of the Worcester Police Department, kind of big losers in 2024. Getting increasingly difficult to support the Worcester Police Department.
They're at least, I'm not sure I'm entirely ready to call them losers yet, but they are going to have to take all of their, all of their nice, pretty, fluffy masks are going to come off, and we're going to see what they are. And we're going to see how that goes, and we're going to see how people react to it. I don't think this is the way they wanted it to go.
Right.
I think they have lost the year. I'll put it that way.
I think they've definitely lost the year because this DOJ report has put them in the position of prove it denialism of criticisms of the Worcester Police Department. Now puts them in the context of being like shitty Me Too people. When you're saying, prove it, where's the evidence to allegations, credible allegations of gross sexual misconduct, that's a little bit different than being made to weigh in on one Hector Pinheiro lawsuit at a time. Now you look way worse doing that than you ever have before. So do you have a plan B? Do you have a different way of defending the Worcester Police Department, or are you going to stay stuck on this where show me the evidence, prove it mentality that we've seen after in the weeks after this DOJ report has come out.
And Bill, not that I ever consume any media outside of the Worcester Sucks empire, but when I occasionally just sort of look to see what I'm not going to read or not going to watch, I go to WCVB, I go to WHDH, I go to Boston NPR, I go to Mass Live, and man, there were weeks and weeks of like headline, subheadline, all about police misconduct in Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a great day for them.
No, it almost seems like the Worcester Police Department's not different than all the bad police departments on the TV, which is what we heard after both rounds of Black Lives Matter, is that Worcester Police Department is so much different. That stuff doesn't happen here.
Yeah. No, it turns out it does happen here. The only way in which we differentiate ourselves is that for a city of our size with a budget that our police department has, we're actually like 20 years behind in even the lamest incremental reforms. We just got body cameras. We still don't have dash cameras. What is going on? We haven't even gotten we're in like 2006 for like lame solutions.
Yeah. And that has, that is directly tied to political culture that has incubated the Worcester Police Department for a long time, shielded it from the outside world by way of, Mayor Joe Petty and Kate Toomey being the best examples of how they're sort of shielded from any sort of scrutiny. And it works because we're frankly a bunch of hill peoples and yokels in the city. And we've never been able to really mount a serious reform push. But the DOJ is going to get us closer to that than we've ever been.
Yeah. And I mean, people have tried, but like you have to have data is I'm not going to go on this. We've talked about this for hours already. We're going to talk about it for more hours. Data is so important. Having something in front of you that you can point at and look at and move is so important. And we have it. So let's fucking move it. But yeah, losers, WPD apologists, winners, us.
Us personally. But we're gonna have to put both of us in the next loser category because man, 2024 banner year for landlords. 2024 stinky year for renters. The general pattern in Massachusetts, which is bearing out the most aggressively and flagrantly in Worcester of any city in the Commonwealth, it seems, is that renters have all the protections, all the rights, and evictions are up, homelessness is up, rents are going up like crazy, and renters can't do shit about it. Renters can not even be guaranteed legal representation in an eviction proceeding. And rent control remains off the table, and the solution to the housing crisis continues to be tax breaks for luxury apartment developers.
Yeah, and I mean one of the things that if you knew enough and had the luxury of time and access to information enough to advocate for yourself as a renter, it used to be in the city of Worcester that your slumlord would be like the person who owns your 3-decker and a couple of other ones. And a lot of times, fortunately, they were pretty stupid and they would like do housing discrimination openly or do retaliation openly or like turn off your heat and, things that are against the law. And that still happens also. But another thing that I just wanted to say as someone who, is in one of these big buildings, the development buildings, they are the worst slumlords of all because they know the law and they have a legal team and they will do all the exact things to you, but they'll do them in just the right way that you cannot use tenant law against them. So that's what we got coming for us.
Right. That all of our new construction is in the hands of those more polished, more capable of finessing landlords.
Yeah.
And all the housing stock that is cheaper is still owned by the old, brutish, small businessman landlords that own most of the triple deckers.
And hey, if you want to try to get out, I also have bad news for you. Bill, do you know what the median home price is in Massachusetts right now?
It's got to be more north of 500,000.
It was just announced in the news I saw this on day after Christmas, I think, at $600,000. Do you know what it was in the year 2020, just almost 5 short years ago?
No, what was it?
It was $393,000.
Jesus.
So if you're looking for a way out, make a lot more money faster.
Yeah, that's the only way out. Because it's not even like there can be cheaper cities anymore because all of the rents are being algorithmically price fixed by big conglomerates that own enough housing in every single housing market to essentially set the terms for that housing market of what rents will be.
Yeah.
So, but let's save that for its own episode.
Yeah. Let's give the people what we've been promising we were going to give them for multiple hours and episodes now, and not be depressing as shit.
Right. So let's turn to everyone's favorite topic, the local media. Who is the loser in the local media and who is the winner? Might I be so bold as to suggest that the loser got to be the Telegram and Gazette? The loser, folks, the Telegram and Gazette, they're no good. They're losers. They're no good. Rotten. No, the Telegram and Gazette is still the largest employer of journalists in the city, which is crazy, which is cuckoo bananas because they have like 2 reporters. They have Brad Patrician, amazing reporter. I love that he writes about Worcester. I love that he gets paid to do what he does. He does a great job. And in terms of overall single journalists in the city of 2024, Brad Patrician, biggest winner because he's been on this police stuff for like 6 years now.
Yep.
And it has all come home to roost in this DOJ report.
And he is a dogged records digger and records requester. He is in there. He's been in there deep for years. He is closer to the skeletons than anyone else in this city, right. with a journalism beat.
Right. He's amazing. But where's the backup? The Telegram doesn't have a columnist besides the shitty old mayor. They have shitty old mayor Ray Mariano writing.
Who may or may not live in Worcester.
Right. Or he probably lives in Cape Cod, and he should prove that he lives in Worcester if he does. He definitely has the columnist position at the Telegram because he writes for free. I have to imagine that's the relationship. Because Telegram used to have columnists. Telegram used to have columnists that would have been all over this DOJ report. All over it. Clyde McFarland would have been all over this thing.
Yeah, we missed you, Clyde.
Diane Williamson, who I missed less, still would have been all over this thing. And those are the sort of voices that give a newspaper its moral authority and make it a voice it makes it actually the fourth estate. You can't just have one reporter digging on stuff with no backup. But that's the situation we're in now, especially since Marco Cardellano, the City Hall beat reporter for a long time in Worcester now, and he was just starting to get really, really good. Actually, he was starting to be cooking a little bit, starting to not be just like the stenographer that City Hall wants that position to be, but actually like throw his weight around. He's gone.
You could almost say he was starting to flex.
He was starting to flex.
But yeah.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
But yeah, he's gone. He's gone.
He's going to New Orleans. God bless him. But that leaves, there's very few reporters left. They have a reporter on the schools. They have another reporter that's sort of general assignment. And I'm only seeing 3 bylines in my head right now for like regular reporters about Worcester at the Telegram and Gazette, which is still 3 full-time reporters, is still the most full-time reporters of any outlet in the city.
Yeah, well, that's looking pretty tough for them. One thing I know is that, when you're at a concert, you never let the band leader introduce themselves. So I am going to introduce the 2024 winner in this category, which is Bill Shaner and the Worcester Sucks Media Empire. Boom.
Remiss as I am to take any sort of praise or credit, I gotta say 2024 was a good year for the newsletter. We have grown both in terms of personnel, our variety of output, and subscriber counts and reach. And I think we are, knock on wood, well on our way to cementing this as a real durable media entity and institution in the city, and not just a flash in the pan from the Substack gold rush of 2020 on.
Yes, indeed.
This podcast is a reflection of that, for sure. And I wouldn't have the time to start this if I wasn't able to make a full-time job out of Worcester Sucks. But I think this is going to be a good way to branch it out and continue to sort of offer a range of sort of different media products, all rooted in the same ethos. But I mean, we went from just me in the past year and a half to now we have WPS in Brief that Ashlyn does. We have Liz Goodfellow, our copy editor, is starting a new column. I'm about to put one up today. Worcester Speaks, which is a great sort of slice of life human interest interview series. There's Sean's Bad Advice, which is sort of getting some arts coverage in there. And we have this podcast now, and we're working on other special projects. So I think that where we see decline everywhere else, we see some growth here at Worcester Sucks.
Worcester Sucks Wednesdays and Sundays and whatever other days forever, as the Beyond Wrestling sticker says. Yes, that's
right. I should actually, I should like rip that off. Yeah, and the Worcester Sucks merch thing has been going great since I started taking that more seriously, and that's a whole other way to get out in the community, and it's like the double prong of, it's a little bit of extra income, and it is good brand exposure. It captures people who don't read the news, but they like knowing that independent and aggressive local reporting exists. That's what makes an alt weekly is still my main goal. I'm sure that you'd be in agreement with this, Chris, is how do you recreate a real alt weekly in the city? Using the tools of the current media ecosystem.
Yeah.
And we're closer now than we were at the beginning of the year, and we're closer than anyone else. So, onward and upward from here, I suppose. But I would love to see this newsletter grow into something that could sustain a staff. So that is still like a full-time staff. That's still a goal. So please subscribe. But we just need to sort of keep doing what we're doing and pursue opportunities as they arise and grow as the community allows us and wants us to, I think. So
Yeah, being beholden to no one but the community itself, being
right.
beholden to us, is what makes me want to take my time to come and keep doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important, and it's a very, very special thing that we have. Not everyone has it.
No. The freedom that I immediately found when I left Worcester Magazine and started covering the city the way that I would if I didn't have an editor telling me what not to do. And seeing that resonate and continue to resonate and continue to evolve and grow just because I am beholden. I've made no devil's bargain with the advertisers or local businesses or city hall. I just basically have complete freedom to do whatever I want because I'm an outdoor cat. And now me and you are both outdoor cats. We can do this how
Yeah.
we want to. And I think that a huge problem in local journalism is it being so fucking boring. And because we're allowed to do what we want to, it doesn't need to be so tearfully boring as everything
Yeah.
else.
And what does what does access get you? What does quote unquote access get you? It gets you nothing. It gets you the ability to print their press release. Like they're going to put it out anyway. It's nothing.
Right, right.
It's worthless. Throw it away. Everyone, everywhere. If if you're not going to get fired for giving up your access, give it up to like say the truth.
Right.
Just
It does
just
not
do it.
matter.
It feels great.
Unless you're trying to get a job in the city hall public relations department,
Unless you're trying to do that, yeah.
which
Then,
is fine. But I really wish that local journalism stopped being such a fucking farm system for the PR job. I know it pays more money. I know it's a better gig. I know you don't have to work as hard. But like, can you just work for Hanover Insurance in the marketing department first? You don't have to work in local journalism in order to get the public relations job. You can do it some other way that isn't so embarrassing. But anyway, I don't want to be talking shit too much on that. I will say, fuck, nope, I won't. I forgot what I was gonna say. I had a wicked funny joke, and I lost it because I got mad about people going from journalism to PR.
well, I guess this is why the podcast is free.
Oh, the moment that I realized that access is worthless is when I saw former city manager Ed Augustus walking out of the Boston Market on Park Ave with a takeaway Boston Market container alone at the end of a business day. Why would I make any trades to get closer to a guy who gets sad rotisserie chicken, same as I do? Sad end of workday rotisserie chicken guy. This is not House of Cards. Access does not get you that far. The person you're cozying up to for all this access still goes to Boston Market alone to eat shitty chicken in their apartment. So think about that when you think about how you're playing some sort of power game in City Hall. There's no power. It's not worth it.
City managers, they're sad, lonely losers, just like us.
That's right. Just like us.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I think
we got some.
That's a perfect place to wrap up our year-end list.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Our Titans and our Imps, but I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to talk about before we close out.
Bill, I wanted to find out what your favorite album of 2024 was.
Sure. I had to give it some thought, and I had to go back through and remember what came out this year, what came out last year, all of that sort of stuff. But this is kind of a normie pick, but I got to go with MJ Lenderman, Manning Fireworks. Man, that is a beautiful record that checks all of the sort of indie rock boxes for me. It has a couple songs on it that are just amazing standout hits, great lyrics, great hooks, and a lap steel player and a pedal steel player playing throughout it, which has been my obsession lately. So I got to go with that one. MJ Lenderman, Manning Fireworks, great record.
Man, I haven't heard it, so I'm going to have to do that.
You're going to have to.
Yeah.
For fans of Built to Spill and Pine Grove and that sort of stuff, Pavement, it's in that area. Yeah.
I like all those things. So yeah.
Chris, what's yours?
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit because this is our fucking podcast and we make the rules. My album of 2024 is an album that actually came out in 2023, but I did not become aware of it until 2024. And it has been my album of the year. Unquestionably, it is the album I listened to the most. It was top of my Spotify Wrapped. It got me through a lot of overnights, particularly back in April and May when all the campus protests were happening. And I was like on call to like bail people out of jail when people got arrested for protesting for a free Palestine. And that album is Games of Power by a band called Homefront. Homefront is something like I guess you'd call them a post-punk band from Edmonton, Alberta. And that album, it rocks, and it's got great synths, and it's got amazing lyrics. And I think we should link Nation in the notes for this show.
Cool.
Here we are screaming at our nation. A nation that doesn't hear a word we say is the chorus. And yeah, that has really resonated with me this year. So that's my pick.
That resonates big time. Cool. I think that's probably a good place to leave it. Everyone go check out those two records. Games of Power, I actually haven't listened to it. I'm really excited to. And MJ Lenderman. Between those two, those are, I think, going to be two pretty solid picks to carry you into 2025. Thank you. Also, I'll just say for everyone who said nice things about this podcast, just out and about, I've heard from a lot of people that have been listening to it that think what we're doing is good. And I love that. I'm having a good time, and this helps me collect my thoughts for the writing portion of this enterprise in a major way. So, Chris, thank you for doing this with me and for really planting the seed in both of our heads.
Yeah. I'm really glad we're doing it, and I've been hearing from people too, and it really means the world to me. That is actually what matters, is like somebody that I think is cool being like, "Hey, I love your podcast."
Right.
So yeah, I'm really excited. Thanks everybody, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. We'll see you next year, motherfuckers.
Later.
Trying to come aside, murdering you, won't be on the time.